Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Joe Palmer begins now.
Good evening, everyone. A witness to a fatal car crash in Wesleyvale this morning has described the scene as one of the most shocking he's seen. Police say the 31-year-old driver wasn't wearing a seatbelt and was killed when he lost control of his vehicle and collided with a tree. Our reporter Tom Johnson filed this report.
It was in the early hours of this morning when the Toyota Camry left the stretch of road behind me and crashed into a tree, killing the man behind the wheel. You can see skid marks leading up to the point of impact. Police on a nightly patrol came across the crash on Port Sorell Road at around 3 a.m.
Upon their investigation of the scene, they discovered a male occupant who had been ejected from the vehicle and he was unresponsive.
Police say the 31-year-old male from East Devonport wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Investigators are now looking at what other factors were involved.
At this stage, we are looking at speed. We're not ruling out alcohol and drugs.
A resident living nearby told 7 Tasmania News the scene was one of the worst he'd seen. The Camry's roof was ripped from the vehicle by investigators to see if any other passengers were in the car. Police are at a loss to explain the driver's behaviour on the road.
Pretty much stick to the basics and don't be silly. It's pretty easy to stay safe on our roads.
Police are asking any witnesses to come forward.
A plane crash at Tomahawk in northern Tasmania last year has triggered authorities to issue air safety advice. The ATSB investigators have found the aircraft was affected by a tailwind as it came into land and ran out of runway space before fatally crashing.
This is how the aircraft ended up after the failed landing at Tomahawk last January. ATSB investigators now finding what caused the crash, which killed the passenger and severely injured the pilot.
The ATSB investigation found that the selected landing direction meant that the aircraft had an increased tailwind and ground speed on approach.
The airfield didn't have an air sock, the pilot reporting he thought the wind was coming from the same northwesterly direction as it had been during the flight. But in fact, they had a tailwind around 15 knots. That causing the plane to touch down late, using up 60% of the runway. While aborting the landing and trying to climb, it hit a tree.
The investigation also found that that final approach was unstable. What that meant was that the aircraft was both high and fast when it was coming into land, which meant it landed well down the runway and bounced during that landing.
The report saying the airfield owner had tried to warn the approaching aircraft about the wind, driving his car onto the runway, flashing his hazard and headlights. But the pilot thought it was an indication of where to land. The crash causing the ATSB to issue this advice to pilots.
They should determine the local conditions, including wind direction and strength, prior to commencing an approach. Most importantly, if a safe landing cannot be assured, the pilot should abort the landing and go around early.
Sandra Southwell was killed in the crash. The ATSB adding its investigation isn't about placing blame, but to improve safety for all. Michael Breen, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmania Police has charged a Mayfield teenager over an alleged armed robbery near the Launceston CBD this morning. Police say the 16-year-old robbed a 29-year-old man at knife point, forcing him to hand over his push bike, wallet and phone. The Charles Street incident believed to have occurred at around 3 a.m. The man was not injured, and with anyone with information is asked to contact Crime Stoppers. A Queensland man accused of trying to throw his partner overboard while on a cruise ship in Tasmanian waters has had his attempted murder charge downgraded to assault. He faced Hobart's Supreme Court for a hearing this morning. Louise Hedger has the details.
David James Fish has today been granted bail from Hobart Supreme Court following the alleged incident on board a cruise ship in Tasmanian waters last October. The 46-year-old and his partner were on Radiance of the Seas en route to Hobart. Tasmania Police allege the pair had an altercation in the middle of the night, which soon escalated. Mr Fish is accused of attempting to throw his partner over the side of the ship from their balcony. He was arrested the next morning and was charged with attempted murder and taken into the custody of Tasmania Police. Today, that charge was officially downgraded to assault. Mr Fish will reappear in court by video link from Queensland on the 17th of May.
The director of Tasmanian motorcycle company Robbery has been sentenced today after being found guilty of dishonestly obtaining financial advantage by deception in relation to motorbike identification plates. Both Bradley Thomas Smith and his employee Toby Wilkin appeared in the New South Wales District Court. Both men will serve a 2-year community corrections order. Most of us love a sausage sizzle, and today barbies were fired up at Bunnings stores across the state to help Tasmanians affected by our recent bushfires. The snag sold at all 7 local stores and will go towards individuals and communities in need of help. One of the world's biggest cruise companies is still eyeing opportunities to send visitors to Wineglass Bay after large ships were stopped from anchoring there. The company continuing to expand its voyages to Tasmania, today docking one of the world's most prestigious ships in Hobart for the first time.
A regal visitor sailing up the Derwent this morning. The arrival of Queen Elizabeth, a big milestone for Tasmania's cruise ship industry. The Premier giving a special welcome for its inaugural visit to Hobart.
I think it's a perfect fit, and this cruise line industry that comes into our state injects about $35 million into Tasmania, so it's a great investment.
Decked out in classic British style, Queen Elizabeth is capable of carrying more than 3,000 guests and crew, offering a 2-tiered theatre, massive restaurants and even a royal-themed ballroom.
She's just over 90,000 tonnes, and she's 294 metres long. A capacity for guests is about just over 2,000.
Queen Elizabeth is part of the giant Carnival Corporation. Its Australian boss saying our state is becoming more of a destination.
Tasmania is clearly a very growing part of our business, and I know you see it every day with the ships coming in and out, particularly during the summer. More people want to come.
Today a sign of that growing interest, with one ship forced to anchor off Sandy Bay and tender ferry customers to shore until dock space was free.
It was really around the timing of vessel movements, and Tasports has a role to make sure that everything is safe and efficient and effective, and pleased to say that it absolutely has been.
But with growing interest in Tasmania, it sparked concerns about intrusion, the sight of cruise liners in Wineglass Bay, leading to the government and industry stopping large ships from anchoring there. But Carnival says it remains high on the wish list for cruise ship passengers.
We continue to work with the government about how do you share the opportunity. Is it only for a handful of people who walk there, or is it for a broader group of people? And I think that'll be an ongoing conversation, but until it's resolved, we won't be going to Wineglass Bay.
We're working with the cruise ships and the operators to offer tours so that people can experience Wineglass Bay, but not from the deck of the ship that's berthed within the bay itself.
The Queen Elizabeth is going to be a familiar sight in Tasmanian waters. Over the next 3 years, another 11 visits to the state are scheduled.
I think it's so unique, and it's important that people see, particularly as we're coming down, they can see the coastline, seeing a part of the whole thing coming in.
Another 74 cruise ship visits are expected for next season. Michael Breen, 7 Tasmania News.
107 kindergartens across Tasmania will see construction works begin this year as major upgrades to facilities start to take shape. Touring the new Windermere Primary School Early Learning Centre today, the government confirming a $15 million infrastructure spend will be rolled out across 2019. The upgrades coming after the Education Minister was forced to scrap his controversial plan to lower the school starting age.
That will include brand new facilities such as the one that we're here today, also major upgrades and some minor works around the state for those kindergartens and early learning centres that require it.
Major upgrades will be done at 18 schools including Cygnet, Mowbray Heights, Orford and Latrobe. The North Melbourne Football Club has spent another day out and about in Tasmania, inspiring the next generation of sporting stars. Players kicking off day 2 of the club's community camp before heading to Launceston to cheer on their AFLW counterparts.
Inspiring our footy stars of the future, the North Melbourne Kangaroos spending another day touring Tasmania, spreading a message that sport is about much more than just the game.
Just trying to get these students to understand what we do and what we're made of, and try to bring them along on the ride and try to create, a more welcoming community.
The former Newtown High School student launching this year's Spirit Awards, rewarding a Year 9 student who's created change in their community by taking them to a game.
It'll be a good experience to take my family away to Melbourne. Never been there before, so it'll be a good experience.
It's really inspiring to see a lot of women do good things with footy, because in the past it's not been all about girls doing footy, but now it is.
It's not just about sport, it's actually trying to give young people a bit of a leg up in life and an opportunity in life, and that's what our programs are focused on.
But as the team was officially welcomed this morning, it's once again raised discussions about just when Tasmania will get its own AFL team.
Many Tasmanians and certainly the government are keen to advance the concept and the plan for a team of our own. That will take some time.
It's not a decision for us whether Tassie gets its own team in the future. It's probably a broader economic question than sentiment, but we're happy to support the board and the people who are trying to make a change here.
The women's team will kick off round 3 with a clash against the Western Bulldogs tonight at UTAS Stadium. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
It's a journey that will take 28 days and cover 1,400 kilometres. One inspiring walker is travelling from one end of the state to the other, raising money along the way. You might see Richard Guanuccio walking along the state's highways, already halfway through his journey. Walking from the Derwent Valley to the Huon today, all money raised going back to fund clean water sources in Uganda.
600 students, there's 2 schools and there's 50 households. So $5,000 Australian, which is nothing, will put a well in that area and help all those people.
He's averaging around 50 kilometres each day to reach his destinations on time. A Tasmanian family is once again transforming a crop field into an unusual maze for the public. The farmer behind this year's bee theme says the project was dedicated to the delicate insect after it almost killed him.
It's dedication on an unbelievable scale, a 5-hectare crop maze inspired by a near-death experience.
I had a brush with a couple of bees earlier in the year and went to hospital in an ambulance twice, and in the journey to the hospital the inspiration came up for a bee maze.
Suffering a severe anaphylactic reaction, the 50-year-old now makes light of the situation, spending several hours on his 50th birthday creating the masterpiece.
It was different this year because we had geometric shapes for the bee honeycomb. A bit of a trial that it seemed after the aerial photo came up that it wasn't too bad. A couple of them might have been a bit better, but anyway.
For the last 6 years, the couple has opened the family farm to maze lovers. Each year a different theme combined with educational value for the kids.
Well, they'll be learning lots of facts about what happens with the bee and its life cycle, what it produces on the farm, how it works with the farmers. So it will be very educational when they come into the maze, because they have to find these facts about the bee when they come through.
The project's success is something they hope will encourage other Tassie farmers to think outside the square.
Sort of value adding to an existing enterprise as much as we can, getting the most out of it and thinking smarter and thinking a little bit differently, and it gets bigger every year, so we think we're onto something. I mean, overseas crop mazes are just a massive business and it just hasn't taken off here in Australia.
From the first weekend in March for 5 consecutive weekends, the maze will be open to the public. A word of warning, it does all look the same, but there is a cheat sheet.
Yeah, if you need a good sense of direction, I think helps always.
Jessie Gilmore, 7 Tasmania News.
Now a look at the day's business and finance news with thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund. The Australian share market has treaded water as investors digest another day of earnings results. The ASX 200 index rose 6.7 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 70.9 US cents and 78.23 Japanese yen.
The wheels well and truly came off the cane train last night in a game which just kept getting worse. A dislocated shoulder has put George Bailey's Sheffield Shield season in doubt, while the 6-wicket loss was the Hurricanes' first defeat in Hobart all season. It was the moment which broke Hurricanes' hearts.
So the curse continues.
A flat finish for a side which had a home final within its grasp. Now the post-mortem on a morbid night, which even saw the side's father-like figure George Bailey go down in agony.
Oh no, he's done his shoulder here. All the weight went onto that right shoulder.
It was pretty sore last night. The shoulder popped out but then went back in again.
It's unclear how long Bailey will be sidelined for, but he could miss some of the Sheffield Shield, which resumes next weekend. But the coach says he isn't calling time on his career.
He was still smiling last night and enjoying being around the boys. So yeah, that's way too early to look at any of that stuff.
Jofra Archer was walking wounded all night. Today, confirmation he played with a tear in his upper back. James Faulkner's body also wasn't 100%, which begged the question why Tim Payne was calling the shots from the commentary box and not on the ground.
Tim was really good. Tim understood. You know, he'd come back from the Test series and was really flat and really tired, so he needed a break. He understands that, you know, we wanted to stick with the guys that got us there.
The beacon of light on an otherwise gloomy night was the Afghan leg-spinning assassin Qais Ahmed.
Yeah! Oh, got him! Straight past Stoinis, not at the head from the start. And that's the sort of ball that you wanted to see from your leggy.
His 3 wickets will have the Hurricanes chasing his signature again next season. Remarkable considering the 18-year-old only came into the side 2 weeks ago as a band-aid replacement for Tymel Mills. Griffith says his core group of players will stay the same next season, but he'd like to see the finals format revised so the top 2 teams have a double chance.
I think that's a good reward for finishing in the top 2. At the moment, you know, you play a home final, which is great, but that's as far as it goes at the moment.
2 Tasmanians have been dropped from the Kookaburra squad. Josh Belts and Jack Welsh will watch from the sidelines when the Aussies take on Great Britain in Perth tomorrow. They're among 7 changes following the Kookaburra's last Pro League match in Hobart. Eddie Ockenden remains in the squad. The name of the new league Tasmania's basketball teams will be a part of has been revealed. NBL 1 will pit the Northwest Thunder, Launceston Tornadoes and Hobart Huskies against teams from Victoria and the ACT. The league will be a tier below the NBL and WNBL competitions. The fixture for NBL 1 is set to be released early next week.
Good evening. Apart from a light patch of drizzle over the southeast fringe this morning, it was a fine day across the state. Launceston the top with 27 degrees, Burnie 23, Hobart and Devonport 21. Temperatures closer to average today, Cressy 25, Campania and Friendly Beaches 24, Ouse 23 degrees, Grove and St Helens 22, Lowhead 21, Flinders Island and Strawn 20, while King Island recorded 19. A little low cloud over the west and south with a light cover over the southeast this afternoon. Now low cloud also over parts of Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland due to onshore winds. Patchy cloud and isolated thunderstorms over southern WA and inland Northern Territory. Tomorrow a trough moves over southern Tasmania with high centres to the northwest and the east. Cold fronts cross southern waters and plenty of low pressure over the mainland. The winds will shift west to southwesterly tomorrow at 10 to 20 knots, more southerly over the east coast with swells at 3 metres. Saturday in Hobart, a light shower or 2, a top of 23 degrees, 22 for Medina, a light shower for Oatlands and 24 the maximum. Launceston cloudy and 24, 21 the top for Devonport, partly cloudy for Lyowini, a high of 20. 21 degrees for Burnie and partly cloudy, maybe a light shower for Strawn, 20 the top, Marrawar 21 degrees, and for St Helens, a light morning shower clearing, 24, 25 for Swansea and 24 the high for Orford. UV very high at 9 and 10. On Sunday, showers developing over the west in the morning, extending across the state during the day. Those showers easing on Monday afternoon and contracting to the west and far south. And on Tuesday, a possible shower over the west, but a mostly fine day with fresh southwesterly winds. Sunny and 31 in Perth and Adelaide. Fine as well in Melbourne, a sunny 29 in Canberra. Partly cloudy over Sydney and Brisbane. And it's cloudy over Hobart at the moment, 17 degrees, 21 in Launceston, 19 and a bit of cloud over Devonport. And Joe, some late news to hand. Apparently Facebook and Instagram are closing their platforms for maintenance at the end of the month, so you can't use any of those platforms on the 29th and 30th of February.
Oh my gosh, thank you for that insight. Fantastic. Well, that's all from the team for now. Have a great evening. We'll see you a bit later with updates. Bye.